Good afternoon, everybody. So today, the purpose of this presentation was to outreach to the campus, students mostly at Cal State Fullerton, to talk about how Gear Up increases post-secondary access and the connection between social justice. It's part of the Social Justice Week conference. So as we start to talk about social justice, I wanted to touch upon equity. So the words equity and equality are often used interchangeably, but they do mean different things. As we all know, equality means equal treatment, like the picture. I'm sure you all have seen similar pictures in the past, but in the picture that we have to the left, there's a bunch of folks on bikes, but as we can see, some folks that have mobility issues, they have a bike but don't have the adjusted bike for their situation. So equity is personalized resources needed for individuals to reach the common goals, as the illustration shows on the bottom. So I wanted to take a moment at the start of this presentation to talk about what does equity mean to you. Thank you, Gabriel and Mina and Carlos. So talking about individualized support, uplifting others, providing appropriate resources, being able to provide to people what they need in order to reach a common goal or their individualized goal. So as we talk about equity, what does that mean for our community around Cal State Fullerton? So inequities in the community affect schools directly. Black students are suspended and arrested on school campuses at higher rates than their peers. We also know that white school districts receive more funding on average than non-white school districts. And any high poverty districts serving mostly students of color receive about $1,600 less per student than the national average, while districts that are predominantly white and poor receive about $130 less. So we can see that intersectional identities also affect inequities, especially for our students of color that are living in communities that are coming from low income. So how does Gear Up advance the mission of social justice and reaching some sort of equity? So as we look at the Gear Up purpose and mission, Gear Up is designed with a social justice foundation. The services are designed to increase the number of underrepresented students from low-income backgrounds to progress into higher education and equip them to be successful in post-secondary and beyond. So we're looking at academic achievement, interventions to ensure academic success, knowledge of post-secondary options and financial aid, college-going culture, in order to create a systemic change and succeed in post-secondary education. And for those of us that are not as familiar with Gear Up, our purpose and our mission aligns with the national organization's goals in mind that we have here on the right, talking about achievement rising, the gaps that are persisting, that the challenge is growing that we're facing to reach equity in our neighborhoods, but Gear Up is part of that solution. So when we think about the Gear Up impact at AUHSD, it's founded in continuing to promote access to higher education to first generation and low-income families in Anaheim. So this is the data from the class of 2021 who just entered their second year of college last fall, if I'm correct, and the impact that it had on the Cal State Fullerton campus as a whole. So the work that Gear Up does directly correlates with making systemic change even within the higher education institution that we work for and that we study at. And to show the larger reach overall as a center, we have about 160 professional and paraprofessional staff. That includes part-time student staff, whether they're undergraduate or graduate staff. And our reach reaches across, not only across Anaheim, but also Santa Ana and other cities, with the help of our other programs, in addition to Gear Up, Educational Talent Search, and Upward Bound. So how do we build equity in our community and beyond, knowing the resources that we have available if we are part of the Gear Up team purpose and mission? So engaging community members is very important. As you all are joining this presentation, you're engaging the discussion of what does it mean to have a social justice lens, and what are the tools that we're using to advance that mission. Building capacity, so making sure that it's not only Gear Up, it's not only Center for Educational Partnerships, but it is a commitment that we make across Orange County as a whole in order to provide more resources for students, for sure, first-generation college students. Understanding the roots of the problem is very important, as I refer back to the NPR article that I had linked in the presentation previously, talking about how law and policy really does influence the amount of funding that a community gets. And we can be change makers in that process because our programs are federally funded, so they are part of policy and law to make sure that social justice is advancing. And finally, aligning your action to solve those core community problems, so doing a constant reflection of the programs and the initiatives that we're a part of as a student, as a staff member, to make sure that we are promoting equity through our programming and not falling in line to what can be a core community problem. So now that we've discussed and chatted a little bit, feel free to type in the chat how you will continue to build equity in your work. As I said, all of us work for CEP, so we have a good grasp and understanding of this, but it's important to have these moments of reflection. So I'll give you about 2 minutes to talk about something you can do today or next week, or a goal you have in mind to continue building equity in your work. I can share one of the ways that I will continue to build equity in my work, working with a lot of part-time staff who are also first-generation college students like myself, making sure that I'm doing frequent check-ins with them about how they are balancing their undergraduate coursework and their jobs is very important. After you're far removed as a full-time staff member, as an older staff member, when you're more far removed from that experience, we can tend to forget what it was like to having to balance all that. And so just having somebody to speak to or think some solutions through with really do help the undergraduate staff. So I'm going to continue building equity to make sure that I'm connecting with the part-time staff, that they know that there's sources of support, and that as a employer and as a program, we can continue helping their academic achievements. Collaboration across department and campuses is very important. Thank you, Carlos. Gabriel said, take time to discuss how our work is impacting community issues. Feel we can get caught up in program objectives and goals. Yes, and forget the core issues we are trying to address. Very true. I think about this a lot, Gabriel, with taxes and how we offer workshops to do financial aid completion and all this other stuff, but we tend to forget that financial literacy, it's part of our grants, but when we think about all the challenges and barriers to reaching financial literacy, there's a lot more there than we might be addressing in our programs. And finally, selfishly, I have some recommendations. If you want to read more about equity in communities and schools, in particularly, there's podcasts and movies and stuff. that I really like if you all are interested to learn more. Thank you all for joining this very short presentation, but I appreciate your support. But thank you, everybody.